0517 local time, Strait of Hormuz. The warning does not come from a speaker or a radio. It comes from a radar screen, and it comes as motion. A surface contact that had been sitting nearly stationary to the north pivots hard and accelerates. Before the watch team can call it out, a second does the same, then a third. 3 tracks. All from the north, all converging on the same narrow channel corridor at the same moment, as if someone had been waiting for a precise second to move all 3 at once. Inside Combat Information Center, the display adjusts instantly. 3 surface contacts. Bearing 031. Speed climbing. The destroyer is already committed deep inside one of the most geographically unforgiving stretches of water on the planet, threading the Strait of Hormuz with merchant traffic distributed ahead and astern, the open water to starboard offering exposure rather than sanctuary, and the Iranian coastline sitting low and brown in the pre-dawn haze to port. There is no buffer here, no comfortable margin. Every decision is made against the background of a waterway that does not tolerate poor judgment. At first, the 3 contacts register as small. Then the speed readouts jump again. 28 knots. That number ends the discussion about whether this is coincidental traffic. On the bridge, nobody raises a voice, nobody breaks from procedure. The captain steps up to the tactical repeater, holds the geometry for exactly 1 moment, then issues his order in the same measured tone he might use to correct a helmsman. Hail them, record everything, maintain course. The radio operator transmits across bridge-to-bridge channel. Unidentified vessels, this is a United States warship conducting lawful transit. You are approaching at unsafe speed. Alter course immediately. No reply. Below, inside CIC, the tone of the room changes without anyone announcing it. This is no longer routine surface monitoring. Track numbers are assigned. Bearing updates tighten to every few seconds. Closest point of approach projections begin compressing with each refresh. CPA under 4 nautical miles. The electronic warfare team starts pulling the frequency environment apart, separating commercial harbor noise and coastal broadcast from anything with a sharper signature. Most of it is background. Then one shoreline radar sweeps across the destroyer again, slightly more focused than before. Not a weapons quality lock. Not yet. But not the kind of casual ambient emission that gets dismissed either. On the starboard bridge wing, a lookout settles his binoculars onto the 3 incoming contacts. Visual. 3 fast craft, low profile. Armed personnel on deck. That is the first confirmation by human eyes. The early light catches white spray lifting off the bows of the approaching boats. The hulls are narrow, built for speed over everything else. Dark shapes are visible mounted forward and amidships, configurations that match heavy machine gun mounts or rocket rails closely enough that at this distance the distinction is irrelevant. Speed and profile have already said what they are. The visual confirms it. The officer of the deck orders the forward camera to tighten. The feed appears on the repeater display. 3 Iranian fast attack craft, weaving just enough to stay unpredictable in their exact line without disguising their direction of travel at all. They are aimed at the destroyer. The motion is not ambiguous. The call goes back to CIC, confirmed. Iranian fast craft, multiple armed personnel visible. Forward, the 5-inch gun rotates a few degrees off centerline. Not to a firing bearing, just far enough to be unmistakable to anyone watching from a boat 3 miles out. On a deck below, the close-in weapon system hums into standby. Its dome sits motionless for now. A white hemisphere that means nothing at rest and everything when it starts moving. Missile crews do not scramble. They do not need to. On a ship built and trained the way this one is, readiness is not a condition that has to be summoned. It is already there. Another transmission goes out, harder in phrasing, identical in professionalism. Iranian vessels, you are approaching a United States Navy warship at unsafe proximity. Alter course immediately. Silence. The destroyer holds her line through the channel. Her wake runs straight and clean behind her. Every person on board understands exactly why that matters. In a waterway like Hormuz, the first side to lose composure often loses the narrative, regardless of who holds the tactical advantage. The ship does not turn away. Then the lead Iranian boat separates from the other 2. It surges forward and cuts toward the destroyer's starboard bow. Fast. Significantly faster than anything resembling a routine shadowing approach. Its wake sharpens into a straight white line across the water. On the bridge, heads come up toward the forward windows. On the camera feed, a crewman near the bow mount plants one hand on the rail and keeps the other in close proximity to the weapon. CPA now 2.6 nautical miles. That number settles into the room. On the electronic warfare console, a new coastal emission appears. Narrower bandwidth, slightly more structured. The EW officer listens through his headset, studying the signal's behavior the way a doctor listens to a patient's breathing. Shoreline emitter is tightening. Still search quality. Not fire control, but focused. He does not use the words missile battery. He does not need to. The people in the room understand the progression. On the bridge, the captain watches the lead boat close the gap. The second and third Iranian craft have spread wider now, one staying outside the immediate approach lane, the other angling aft toward the destroyer's quarter. This is not reactive movement, it is calculated. The boats are building angles around the ship in a way that requires coordination between three separate hulls. Someone is directing this. The captain gives the next order. Set condition 3. Man key stations. Throughout the ship, steel doors open. Boots hit ladder wells. Sailors move with the particular speed of people whose training has removed hesitation from their physical responses. The helm stays steady. The engines answer without variation. The destroyer does not turn. Outside, the lead Iranian craft is still closing. The shoreline radar sweeps harder. And in the growing light over Hormuz, with 3 armed boats tightening the geometry and the coast beginning to participate behind them, the transit stops feeling like a transit and starts feeling like something that was arranged in advance. 0521. Strait of Hormuz. The lead Iranian fast craft does not decelerate. It drives across the destroyer's starboard bow at a distance so close that hull numbers are readable through spray with the naked eye. The wake detonates outward in a hard white burst that rolls under the destroyer's forward quarter. Something rattles on a console. A lookout catches the rail. No one speaks the obvious. That approach was deliberate. CPA, 1.2 nautical miles. CIC delivers the update without inflection. Then the second Iranian boat drifts wide to starboard, dropping back just enough to open space and establish a new angle. The third slides aft, matching the destroyer's pace from below the quarter, positioning itself at an angle that would be a blind spot on a ship that had blind spots. This one does not. But the attempt is clear. In under 30 seconds, the tactical picture has reorganized from an aggressive approach into something with a different structure. A partial bracket developing off the destroyer's starboard side, with the lead craft still pressing forward and 2 others managing the geometry around it. They are building angles, the tactical action officer says over the circuit. No reply comes immediately. The captain is watching the lead craft through the forward glass as it bounces across the chop. Then he shifts to the tactical repeater, where the 3 wake lines now form a loose arc around the American ship's starboard quarter. In CIC, the picture compounds. Surface tracks, coastal emissions, merchant traffic still threading the channel to the south. Everything has to be held simultaneously, labeled precisely, and acted on in sequence. The destroyer's radar holds the surface contacts while the electro-optical feed tightens on the nearest Iranian hull. Deck crew in helmets and dark body armor. Forward weapon mount with a shield. Tube-shaped structures aft. Rocket rails, possibly. At this range, possibly requires the same response as confirmed. The radio cracks again. Iranian fast craft. This is United States warship. Your maneuvers are creating an unsafe situation. Alter course now. This time, a reply comes back. Male voice, flat cadence. English with a heavy accent. U.S. warship. You are approaching an Iranian security zone. Alter course south immediately. The words themselves are almost secondary. What matters is the timing. The lead boat accelerates as the transmission ends, as if the radio call had served only to occupy 3 seconds of the destroyer's attention, while the hull closed additional distance. On the starboard bridge wing, the lookout does not lower his binoculars. Crewman on the lead craft is standing directly beside the forward mount. The sentence does not need to be finished. Inside CIC, the EW officer looks up from his console. Shoreline sweep is compressing, still search mode, but the behavior is changing. The captain does not pause. Launch the helicopter. On the flight deck aft, the order reaches the MH-60R Seahawk crew before the sound of the intercom has finished. The aircraft has been sitting at alert with blades folded and crew close since before dawn. Tie-down chains come off in quick practice pulls. Deck crew crouch and move. Rotor blades spread and lock. The turbine rises from a low hum to a hard, high metallic pitch that cuts through the morning air over the water. Nobody on the bridge turns to look aft. The sound tells them everything they need to know. Outside, the lead Iranian craft surges again. Range drops to 1,800 yards. Spray flashes in the early light as the hull hammers through its own wake. The destroyer's 5-inch gun traverses further to starboard, not aimed to fire, but positioned to be seen by everyone on those approaching boats. The CIWS dome comes fully active, its tracking logic awake and deliberate, the mount shifting with a slow mechanical intentionality that communicates exactly one thing. This ship is finished treating this situation as anything other than what it is. Then the Seahawk lifts. Rotor wash tears across the flight deck and sweeps hard off the stern. In seconds, the helicopter drops its nose and slides off the port quarter, banks hard across the destroyer's bow, and crosses left to right directly into the Iranian boat's forward field of view. Low over the water, fast, purposeful, not a display of presence, but a direct insertion into the space the lead craft had been trying to own. Inside the helicopter, the sensor operator brings the targeting camera onto the lead boat and holds it there. The cockpit stays quiet. The pilot keeps altitude low and controlled, the aggressive geometry of a platform that was designed specifically to operate against small surface threats, and knows it. On the bridge, the update comes in. Air asset on station. The Seahawk moves ahead of the nearest Iranian boat and holds position offset, forcing every person on that hull to look up rather than forward. A green laser designator sweeps across the lead craft's bridge windows. Non-lethal, impossible to misinterpret. The loudspeaker message follows a second later, English first, then a clipped Persian phrase from the aircrew's prepared script. Iranian vessel, alter course immediately. You are operating unsafely in the proximity of a United States warship. The lead boat wobbles as it hits the downwash from the helicopter's rotors. For the first time since the chase began, its bow drifts a few degrees off the destroyer's bearing line. Not much, enough to register, but the significant development is not on the water. It is inside CIC. The EW officer straightens in his chair. His voice when it comes is measured and deliberate. Lead craft is now emitting. Short-range surface search. Behavior pattern is changing. He pauses. Tracking behavior. He's painting the helicopter. The room processes that in silence for a moment. Harassment is one category of action. Unsafe maneuvering is another. But actively tracking a U.S. Navy helicopter with a radar system during a live standoff at close range is a different category entirely. That is targeting behavior. The line between those two things is not ambiguous, and everyone in that room understands which side of it the encounter has just crossed. On the bridge, the captain's response is immediate and quiet. Arm-layered defense. Request warning shot authority. Keep the helicopter on station. The Seahawk tightens its camera lock. The laser holds. Every second is time-stamped and recorded in multiple independent systems simultaneously. Below the waterline, missiles remain cold. Guns remain silent. The ship has not fired anything, but the Strait of Hormuz on this morning has just become something different from what it was 20 minutes ago. 3 Iranian boats started this as a demonstration. One of them has just started to participate in something with a different name. 0524, Strait of Hormuz. The picture inside CIC is no longer 3 fast craft and a narrow channel. It has expanded. The 3 Iranian boats remain on the surface display, active and close. But north of the immediate engagement area, a 4th contact has been sitting at measured speed since before the fast craft made their initial move. It is larger. Its position makes no tactical sense for a vessel simply transiting the strait. It is positioned to watch, relay, or command, and it has not moved since the encounter began. Behind all of it, the coastal radar sector continues its cycling. No longer ambient, no longer random in its intervals. Disciplined sweep timing, consistent bearing, directed at the engagement area. This is not 3 impulsive boat crews. This is an orchestrated pressure operation. The Seahawk holds its position off the lead craft's bow. Camera fixed, laser steady. The pilot keeps the aircraft low and deliberate. Inside the cockpit, the sensor operator has not shifted his attention from the targeting display since the lock was first established. The green designator mark continues to remind every eye on that Iranian bridge that the helicopter is not a bystander. Below on the water, the lead craft's aggression is starting to show its first cracks. The pace of its approach has eased. Not a retreat, not a turn, but the bow is no longer driving as hard. The second boat has drifted wider, its heading beginning to lose the clean attack geometry it held through the earlier phase. The third lingers aft, caught between maintaining the bracket and beginning to calculate whether staying in position is worth the exposure. Then the fighters check in. The call comes through the tactical circuit in a tone so flat it is almost jarring. Fast Eagle on station. On the bridge, nobody reacts visibly. Nobody looks up. But on the combat system display, 2 friendly air tracks appear from the south, descending into the engagement area at a speed that makes clear they were not launched for atmospheric effect. Whether they came from a carrier deck operating beyond the horizon or from a patrol orbit already threading the transit lane does not change their relevance. They are here. They are fast, and they are now part of the geometry that the Iranian boats have to calculate against. The tactical action officer updates the captain without ceremony. 2 fighters overhead. Inside 1 minute, helicopter remains visual, surface contact still active, coastal emitter still cycling, larger northern contact holding position. The captain responds immediately. Bring CIWS to active track. Keep missiles cold. No one releases unless we have a confirmed hostile act or a launch. That instruction carries specific meaning. The ship is stepping its defensive posture forward, but it is not initiating. The rules governing this moment remain unchanged. The U.S. ship is not escalating first. Inside CIC, the weapons team acknowledges. The close-in weapon system transitions from passive readiness to active tracking mode. Servo motors run. Tracking logic engages. The 5-inch gun holds its bearing to starboard. Silent, committed, visible from the water. Electronic warfare begins feeding countermeasure configurations into the tactical loop. Nothing is deployed yet. Nothing is jammed. But the destroyer is no longer simply observing the engagement. It is shaping the space around it. Outside, the first fighter passes overhead. Not diving, not posturing in any theatrical sense. Just present, and present in the specific way that a high-performance aircraft moving at that altitude and speed over a cluster of small boats communicates. A dark shape crossing the pale morning sky in a controlled bank over the strait, turning wide, then coming back in a measured arc that places American air power directly above the Iranian formation. The second fighter follows, offset, holding enough altitude separation to cover the full area below. The Seahawk crew sees the shift in the lead Iranian boat before the bridge does. The second boat's heading drifts. First a few degrees, then a few more. A crewman near the gun mount turns and looks up. Another man raises an arm and pointing at the aircraft above or signaling his bridge or both. The third boat bleeds speed, half a knot, then another half. Small movements, but in a close water standoff where every adjustment has been calculated, small movements are the language of decision. Only the lead craft keeps pressing, not with the same urgency as the first approach, but still committed, still not turning. Inside CIC, another update arrives. Air picture negative. No Iranian aircraft airborne. Large northern contact remains stationary. Coastal radar active. Recommend maintaining posture. The captain studies the plot for a moment longer than before. He is not looking at 3 boats anymore. He is reading the structure behind them. The lead craft, the outer craft, the larger vessel sitting north, the radar ashore, the timing pattern of the transmissions, the way the tracking emission appeared precisely when the helicopter entered the engagement area. The picture is layered. Each element connects to the others. Then the shoreline changes it again. The EW officer turns from his console. Emission spike. Same coastal sector. Beam has narrowed. Behavior pattern is consistent with queuing or pre-engagement sequencing, possibly approaching missile-quality track. Nobody asks for clarification. The bridge gets quieter, not louder. That is the specific silence of a warship in which the actual danger has arrived and everyone present recognizes it. Fewer words, less movement, more attention concentrated on fewer things. The fighters come around again, not descending into an attack, taking ownership of the air above the engagement with enough presence to dominate the visual and cognitive space for everyone on the water below. The Seahawk widens its orbit slightly to preserve its own clearance, but the camera lock on the lead craft does not move. The destroyer holds course through the strait, wake straight, bow steady. Every sensor on the ship, every platform overhead, every watchstander on both sides of the encounter, observing the same thing. The U.S. ship is not turning away. On the Iranian side, uncertainty has begun moving through the formation, but the situation has not resolved. Because the coast is now participating in a way it was not 3 minutes earlier. The radar ashore is no longer ambient. It is active in a pattern that has operational meaning. And in the Strait of Hormuz, once the coastline joins the engagement, every second that follows carries more risk than the one before it. 0527, Strait of Hormuz. It happens before anyone on the bridge has fully processed what they are seeing. The lead Iranian fast craft surges up along the destroyer's starboard side. The bow hammers through its own wake. Then, near the forward mount, something moves, a flash, brief and sharp, and a streak low over the surface of the water. A second later, a column of white spray erupts off the destroyer's starboard beam, close enough that mist reaches the lower bridge windows. Not a hit, not a near miss that anyone is willing to classify as anything other than what it represents. Inside CIC, 3 reports arrive simultaneously. Splash, starboard beam, possible warning rocket, no confirmed missile launch. The captain does not wait for the categorization to resolve. At this distance, with coastal radar active and armed boats bracketing the ship's starboard side, the operational distinction between an intended warning round and a poorly aimed attack does not exist. Both require the same response. Shift to full engagement posture. Weapons tight, hold for authority. The ship answers at once. The CIWS rotates hard to starboard and transitions into active fire control tracking mode. The 5-inch gun completes its traverse and settles into the lead boat's sector with finality. Missile crews stand ready below, one command away from a response that would convert the geometry of this encounter into something irreversible. On the bridge, the officer of the deck keeps the ship's heading unchanged, even now, even after the spray. Especially now, because if the destroyer turns hard inside the channel, merchant traffic astern compresses, angles collapse, and the transit corridor becomes a problem for everyone moving through it. The ship stays on course. Outside, the Seahawk breaks its orbit immediately. The pilot pulls the helicopter wider and higher, moving out of effective small arms range while maintaining optical lock on the lead Iranian craft. In the cabin, the sensor operator zooms to maximum resolution on the forward deck of the boat, searching for flash, smoke, tube signature, anything that establishes definitively what just left that hull. Negative confirmed missile. Possible unguided rocket or warning round. Multiple personnel still topside and active. The fighters react without waiting for a specific order to do so. One drops altitude in a smooth, controlled descent, not an attack run, but a deliberate occupation of the airspace directly above the engagement zone at a speed that makes the aircraft's purpose impossible to misread. The second holds higher and offset, covering the wider picture. No weapons announcement, no radar lock declared over open frequency. Speed, position, and mass presence, doing the work that words would do more slowly. On the water, the formation begins to fracture. The second Iranian boat, which had been drifting outward through the last several minutes, breaks first. Its bow comes off the destroyer's bearing line, and its wake begins to flatten as the pilot reduces throttle. The third boat, still attempting to hold the aft angle, hesitates, reading the moment, calculating whether there is still a bracket to maintain or whether the geometry has already been taken away from them. The lead craft alone stays dangerously close, still in motion, still not in control of the scene. Then the shoreline pushes the situation again. The EW officer's voice carries a weight it did not have 2 minutes ago. Coastal emitter strengthening. Short burst. Beam characteristics are consistent with pre-launch queuing radar. No confirmed missile tone yet. That assessment lands in CIC with a specific kind of gravity. The destroyer is now managing 2 separate threat layers simultaneously. Armed fast craft in direct visual range and a coastal system ashore that may be feeding targeting data to something larger and farther inland. This is how small boat harassment crosses into genuine engagement, not with a single clean declaration, with accumulated uncertainty, water, radar, proximity, and poor decisions compounding faster than any single system can track in isolation. The captain issues his next order. Request weapons free authority if coastal lock is confirmed. Warning shots are authorized on the table. All sensors remain recording. On the lead Iranian boat, the effect arrives visibly. Through the destroyer's optics, a crewman near the forward mount drops into a crouch. A second figure on the boat's bridge turns and gestures with both arms toward the helm. The bow yaws left, indecisive, then snaps back. For one extended second, the lead craft appears to be caught between 2 choices without a clear commitment to either. The Seahawk holds its orbit, camera locked. The lower fighter screams across the top of the engagement area. Not a combat pass, but a presence at a speed that physically disturbs the surface below it, and visually ends any remaining question about what is flying overhead and why. It does not fire. The pass is enough. The lead Iranian craft loses its forward commitment. The bow swings hard to starboard. The wake, which had been running directly at the destroyer's side in an unbroken line, bends outward into a curving arc away from the ship. The third boat follows within seconds, turning out and away. The second, already displaced, commits fully to opening distance. The bracket is gone. The coastal radar continues its cycling from ashore. The larger Iranian contact north of the scene remains stationary, watching, holding, possibly relaying assessments back to whoever authorized this operation, waiting perhaps for the Americans to fire on withdrawing boats and produce a usable image. The destroyer does not fire. The ship holds her heading, guns trained, defensive systems fully active, fighters overhead, helicopter offset and recording, crew ready to respond with a level of force that would end the discussion permanently. And still, the ship declines to be the first platform to lose composure. On the bridge, the captain watches the lead craft open the gap. He says one sentence. They push to the line. He does not add anything. He does not need to. Everyone on the bridge, inside CIC, in the Seahawk cockpit, and in the fighter aircraft above, already knows what was waiting on the other side of that line. And for one distinct moment over the Strait of Hormuz, so did the Iranian boats. 0534, Strait of Hormuz. The withdrawal is not fast, and it is not clean. The lead craft eases its heading just enough to preserve the appearance of deliberate disengagement rather than retreat. The second boat has already moved into safer water. The third, which had tried to hold the aft angle longest, finally commits to opening distance and falls off the destroyer's quarter. From outside, the movement looks controlled. The track data says otherwise. Inside CIC, the closest point of approach figure starts moving in the other direction for the first time since 0517. 1.8 miles, then 2.4, then 3.1. Small numbers on a display. On a morning like this one, they feel like pressure coming off a joint. Nobody marks the change out loud. The captain stays on the bridge, alternating between the tactical repeater and the forward glass. The destroyer has not changed course, has not reduced speed, has not yielded a single degree of heading or a single yard of water through the entire encounter. That consistency is itself a statement, and it will be part of the record. Above the ship, both fighters maintain their orbit, one high and wide, one lower, both holding the area with the quiet authority of platforms that have not been required to demonstrate their full capability. The Seahawk eases wider, no longer crowding the lead boat's position, but still recording, still watching, still close enough to ensure that every Iranian crewman on those hulls understands that nothing from this morning exists only in memory. Surface contacts, increasing separation, CIC reports. Continue track, the tactical action officer says. On the electronic warfare console, the coastal emitter begins to show reduced intensity. Not an immediate shutdown. A sweep, a pause, another weaker return, then progressively longer intervals between cycles. The EW officer notes it without reading optimism into it. Coastal sector showing reduced activity, still present, less structured. In Hormuz, a radar going quiet means only that one phase has concluded. It does not mean the waterway has become safe. On the flight deck, nothing stands down. Tie-down crews remain at stations. Weapons personnel stay close. The smell of turbine exhaust and hot deck metal persists in the air beneath the steady vibration of the ship driving through the channel. Below, missile crews hold posture. The 5-inch gun stays trained to starboard. The CIWS continues its active tracking, its logic awake and alert, following the lead Iranian craft's withdrawal the way a trained animal watches something it has decided not to chase yet. That is what a warship looks like after an edge. Not relaxed, not celebratory, refusing to assume that a threat moving away is a threat that has concluded. Through the optics feed, the crewmen on the lead boat's deck are no longer facing the destroyer. One is seated, another appears to be on a handset. The aggressive posture that defined the approach has given way to something different. Smaller, less directed, the physical language of people who pressed to a specific limit and found something waiting there that recalibrated their assessment. The second and third boats have already separated enough that their positions no longer suggest coordinated action. Whatever the operation was designed to accomplish, it is finished. But the Americans have collected something that will outlast the morning. That is the piece of the encounter that rarely appears in the headline. Iran did not damage the ship, did not force the destroyer out of the transit lane, did not extract an overreaction that could be filmed and repackaged, did not compel an American weapons release on withdrawing boats. What it did instead was expose the full operational structure of a coordinated fast boat harassment operation. The timing of the boat movements, the communication rhythm between hulls, the role of the larger northern contact, the behavior pattern of the coastal radar, and the specific moment at which one boat crossed from harassment into active targeting of a U.S. platform. Every emission sweep, every approach bearing, every altitude of the Seahawk at every second of the engagement, every timing interval between the radio transmissions and the boat accelerations, all of it logged, cross-referenced between independent sensor systems and preserved in a form that does not degrade with memory. That is the kind of intelligence product that shapes how a Navy responds the next time a similar operation appears on a radar display. The mistake Iran made this morning will last longer than any burst of spray off the starboard beam. The captain gives the order to ease posture one level, maintain track, step down incrementally, keep air assets overhead. It is not a dramatic command. A ship like this does not treat survival as an occasion. Discipline is the baseline, not the ceiling. Inside CIC, the pace of callouts continues at a lower tempo, but nothing stops. The large northern contact remains on the scope, stationary, holding its position, still watching. The fighters maintain their measured turns above. The Seahawk works its way back toward the ship, not because the situation is forgotten, but because the documentation is complete, and the presence has accomplished what presence was there to accomplish. On the bridge, the morning light is fully established now. Merchant traffic continues through the strait. The destroyer continues forward on its original heading. Same speed, same mission, same course it was holding when 3 boats chose to challenge it. That may be the most complete answer available to anyone watching from ashore, from a boat, or from an aircraft above. The U.S. ship went in, absorbed the pressure, answered it without losing control of the encounter, and came out the other side on the same heading it started on. The boats fall away behind the starboard quarter. The coastal radar fades into the background noise of the strait. The channel opens slightly ahead of the bow, and no one on board mistakes that space for a guarantee. Because waterways like this one do not offer guarantees. One flash from a forward mount at the wrong moment, one spray column beside the hull, one radar sweep from the coast that tightens past the point of return. That is the entire margin between what happened this morning and something else entirely. Iran came to that margin, looked at what was waiting on the other side of it, and pulled back. The destroyer never did.